welcome. I'm excited to be in this position to have this press conference here on December 30th. I know, something I think about right away is our team, and a lot of our guys got a taste of playoff football in 18 and 19. Probably felt like they got really close in 19, and it was a really determined outfit when I took over in February, and we implemented some changes along the way, and for us to be in this position, a little over 2 years later, couldn't be more excited. I know both of those seasons, the 18 and 19, ironically ended against North Dakota State in Fargo. So to have NDSU as our opponent, I think for our guys is nothing more than the opponent we're playing. I think our guys looked at this opportunity when it was laid out with the brackets. What can we do to go week by week, put everything we can into our preparation that week, and I think we've continued to improve through these playoff games. And now with the 3-week layoff, we're excited to be back here in Bozeman, preparing again with an opportunity to play a really good program, a tremendous program, one that I obviously know a lot about. And this team, much like all the teams of the previous decade, do things how championships teams do them. They run the football, they stop the run, play really good in the special teams. They're the type of team that you have to beat. They're not going to beat themselves. So we got our work cut out for us, but I think our guys are excited to go down to Texas here in a few days. But again, the work we're doing here in Bozeman is getting us going, and we'll be on the road come Wednesday. But excited for this opportunity for our guys and all they've been through, in particular the last couple of years. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Let's start with Eric Peterson. Go ahead, Eric.
Hey, Coach. Just start with Troy Andersen. What does he mean to your defense, and what types of things has he done to kind of help elevate that side of the ball this fall?
Well, Troy is first off an extremely talented individual. He has been blessed with great size, great speed, and on top of that, he's very intelligent. He's an amazing competitor. And on top of all of that, he's probably our best leader. And the really neat thing about Troy is he's really playing a new position again this year. Everybody knows he's played outside linebacker, he's played running back, he's played quarterback, all that. But he's playing, our Mike linebacker, which needs to be our alpha on that defense. And Troy didn't have spring ball. He didn't have the luxury of getting those reps back in April and May, but really took it upon himself. Every single walkthrough he could be a part of in the spring, he was learning. And then through the summer, as his, he became cleared medically, he got a lot of reps and player-led opportunities. And then what I've seen out of him, I guess to your point, is he's just continued to get better. So all that talent aside, he's continued to see the game faster and faster from that position, and he can blitz, he can cover, and he can cover space like crazy. And without him, we certainly wouldn't be in this position.
And just describe the starting a freshman quarterback to start the playoffs, and just his growth in those few starts, and why do you think Tommy has been as successful as he has during this playoff run?
Well, we used Tommy a lot of different ways through the course of the regular season. He played some receiver, played on all our special teams. So he was blocking, he was tackling, he was catching the football, but he was still in the quarterback meetings. He was still in the quarterback drills. So I think we saw, real growth throwing the football through the course of the fall. He made an impact in games running the football from the quarterback position. So when we got to the end of the regular season, we felt like we needed to make a change and felt like he was in position to do it. I think it helped for us to have that bye, to kind of go back to square one to some degree with him. But it felt like, his emergence was going to be a real possibility, and you could see it kind of quarter by quarter in that UT Martin game, the game slowing down for him a little bit. So that was such a big game for him to have some success, but also to go through some things and have some failures. And I think the biggest thing about him, he recognized the things he did wrong. I mean, a lot of kids would just be happy with, scoring 3 touchdowns or whatever he did in that game. He was more critical of the things that he needed to improve upon, and I think he took that into the next week's prep against Sam Houston, did some really good things in that game, obviously, and then, again, I think he took another step forward against South Dakota State. So, I think we felt like he was capable of doing what he's done, maybe not to the degree, I guess, but knew he had the capabilities of not only making plays for us, but continuing to improve. And for us to continue to win week by week, he needed to keep improving, and he's done that to this point. And I think this 3-week window, not only getting him healed up, but also allowing for that improvement to continue, will be big heading into this game.
And as finally, if Christian Watson does play for NDSU, what does he add to NDSU's offense, and what are some of the challenges in defending him? Thank you.
Well, he's a tremendous playmaker, and not only catching the ball, but running with the football as well. So I think he draws a lot of attention on offense, and then he could also in the kick return game as well. So, I think our expectation is to see Christian, and to pay him attention, and whatever that is, it's certainly not allowing him to get behind us, doing everything we can from that perspective. First off, and I think in the run game, if he becomes a run threat, we gotta bring him down. He's done a really good job through the course of his career of being able to break tackles. It's not just his speed; he can break tackles too. So, I think keeping him in front of us, not allowing him to get behind us, is the biggest thing. But certainly knowing where he is all the time will be a key factor.
Let's go to Coulter Nuanez. Go ahead, Coulter.
Hi, Coach. It's a unique circumstance for a team to have 3 weeks to prepare for a game. It rarely happens at any level of football unless you're playing for a national championship. Seems to me that there's both pluses and minuses to that. But what do you think are some of the advantages and disadvantages, and how do you make sure the guys don't get overloaded with information and all the noise that's out there?
Well, I'll speak to the advantages first. I think it allows for both teams to put their best team out there possible after playing 14 games in the course of 16 weeks. I think that's the first thing, and I think everybody wants, from a championship perspective, both teams to have their best product out there. I think it certainly allows you to study up an opponent as much as you can, but also that both teams have that advantage, I guess. I know for us, in getting our guys home for Christmas, I think that's a healthy deal too. Our guys have been at it, really since the beginning of August. We had a couple-day break going back to Thanksgiving, but really, just getting a chance to unwind a little bit. I think mentally, I think that's important. And then from a disadvantage perspective, the biggest thing I see is, we were gaining momentum certainly in that 3-week run, and I guess you guard against just stepping away from football a little bit. And, so that's why getting them back here this week and getting ourselves going again is so important. I think you take too many days off during this stretch, you could lose some of that. So, we were real particular about our schedule over these 3 weeks, having been through it. Not only at NDSU, we had a long break, we had a month break. Our last bowl game that I was a part of at Wyoming, knowing how to navigate that a little bit and at least having a roadmap for me was helpful in just planning this out as well.
And from a momentum standpoint as well as a game plan standpoint, specifically Tommy Mellott, he sort of had an element of surprise, and now that's sort of gone with NDSU having so long to prepare for him. So how do you hope he reacts, and what sort of things can you do to sort of help him continue the momentum he built the first couple weeks of the playoffs?
Well, there's a couple things there. If we didn't have a 3-week break coming up, I don't know if he could have carried it 34 times against South Dakota State. So, the factors in that South Dakota State game with Isaiah being out, knowing we would really need to lean on Tommy, I think we felt comfortable doing because we would have this 3-week break on the other side. I think as far as the momentum he was gaining, I see it all as a positive. I think we can come back with him again more to the basics, both last week and this week, and then really, just continue to get him reps. He's still a guy that really from September through November was getting some reps, but not that many at quarterback. So as many reps as he can accumulate here, I think it's all a positive. And I think their ability to defend him, I think whether they had 3 weeks or 1 week, North Dakota State would do a really good job of planning for him. So, we need to get as many of our guys back to be able to complement him, but understand, hey, we're in a one-game mode right now. We're going to do whatever it takes to win the football game.
And two more for me. One, there's always been such a huge narrative of North Dakota State and how good they are on the lines. That seems to be very true again this year, but it's very true for Montana State too. So how do you see that matchup, and what sort of advantages maybe can you find when you are going against kind of the benchmark in that area?
Well, I think they're really good there every year, and I look first on the offensive side. They've been able to plug and play some younger guys, through the playoffs, and really haven't skipped a beat. That's that continual building of a unit of depth. And they're up front, you can move a Volson around, and he can play right tackle, right guard. Plug in Mason Miller, in a center situation, they've played both those guys. So, offensive line play, certainly has been for a long, long time and continues to be a great strength of the program there. And then defensively, they play so many guys. The number of times I've had to glance at a roster to see who this guy is, who that guy is, it allows all of those guys to play 100 miles an hour whenever they're out there. And, I think the effort they play with, the attention to detail they play with up front is really, what we've aimed to do at Montana State. So, the line play for sure, I think on both sides is where it starts for them. And I think, collectively, these two units are, as good as they've probably had, and even going back to the teams that I was fortunate to be a part of back in the early part of the decade.
Last one for me. It seems like every time I've watched NDSU in the playoffs over the last 10 years, there's always a fullback or an H-back that is catching passes, having huge games, maybe atypical for what you think of modern offenses, but they always seem to have guys in those sort of dirty work positions that can also make offensive plays. So how much does that just diversify an offense, and what have you thought of their dedication to getting so many guys involved, especially guys that maybe in other offenses wouldn't typically get the ball?
Well, I know this. They got a really unique guy in Hunter Lupke in that position right now. Maybe as unique has been in that program. His ability to play fullback, the position he's listed at, I think is really, he's really talented there. If that means he's blocking on the power play or on the perimeter, his ability to line up in the wing position and be a real threat there, has been evidenced in both his blocking ability and his catching ability. But I think it's, when they throw him back at tailback and give him the ball, that's such a rare combination. There's been guys that maybe have been able to do two of those three things pretty well, but to do all three as well as he's done them, I think that's, I've heard it. He's maybe their best athlete, their best football player, and he's a guy that I know has our complete attention. And beyond that, how many guys, that tight end fullback position group, while it's an extension of the O-line to some degree, I think it's really, become an extension of the receiver room as well. And I know, Gindorf has been out, but they, they're able just to, again, put the next guy in. So, yeah, the ability to be in 22 personnel, 13 personnel, and do all kinds of things, anywhere from empty to really cramming everybody in there, is something that they've taken probably to another level the last several years.
Victor Flores, you're up. Go ahead.
Hey, Brent. Just a couple quick questions for me. First off, just any update with COVID? Has COVID affected you guys at all just in the last few weeks?
Well, I think we're in a position where I can confidently say at this point as we stand, and we're not going to be missing anybody. Obviously we got a ways to go yet before we get on that plane, and then even getting down there to say, it's not a concern, I would be remiss. I mean, it's a real concern. And going back to, I think as we broke before Christmas, I think things were just escalating. And at the same time, I felt like, keeping our guys here wasn't super healthy either, just mentally. And asked our guys to be as safe as possible as they're away. And now we come back, and in a lot of ways, I feel like we're back to, I don't know how we were last year as far as, masking and distancing and all that, but with a clear intention of mind, we got to get down with as full a roster as we can to Texas, and then obviously have as many guys on that field on the 8th. So, nothing really yet, but we're certainly being cautious. I know that much.
And then just kind of along the same lines, any update from what you last said on just the injuries and guys potentially coming back that were missed last game?
Yeah, I would stick to that same comment. I think we're moving in the direction that whether it's Chase, Ty, Isaiah, Lane Sumner, those guys will all be back in uniform, and we got a little ways to go yet, but things are certainly progressing that way.
Thanks, Brent.
Let's go next to Robbie Whittle. Go ahead, Robbie.
Yeah, hey, Coach Vigen, good to see you. So y'all have played 3 of the same teams this calendar year. How helpful has that been in preparing for North Dakota State?
Oh, the common opponent thing, I think what happens is you've seen this opponent against other people. It's not the first time you've watched this opponent, and I know it's a crossover element there, but I think our offense and defensive coaches are acutely aware of what North Dakota State brings to the table because we've seen them on film throughout the course of the year, whether it was the last 2 weeks or going back to Eastern Washington. So I think it's helpful. I think if you feel like schematically you match up a little bit with one of those opponents, I think there's certainly things you can look to. But more than anything, I think it's just familiarity. You're not looking at this team for the first time.
And kind of a follow-up to that, you said about a week and a half ago that you got to go into this game with a certain mindset, a certain confidence per se. When talking with Tommy Mellott, he said it was just kind of having confidence in what we've done all year and what we've been able to do on the football field. Is that more or less what you were saying when you were saying you got to go into this game with a certain level of confidence?
Yeah, I think each week, whoever we've played, we've gone through the same process, which includes, preparing, respecting your opponent, and then going out and playing as hard as you can. So I think our guys have recognized that formula really, hasn't changed. Now the stakes change, obviously, but I think our guys understand that, hey, no matter who we've played all season, we better prepare. We better respect what they can do, and we better go and play our hearts out. And I think our guys have followed that formula week in and week out, and I think that's what I was speaking to is we should have confidence in how we've gone about our business, who we are as a team, but respect the heck out of North Dakota State. And then I think our guys understand that. That's just not lip service from Tommy.
And Mellott's kind of been saying is, to keep the pressure off his back, he's been saying, yeah, these guys are just college players too, just like me. Is that something you remind him a little bit, or is that something he came up with on his own?
That must be him on his own. I think what he's getting at, we talk about it all the time. We're gonna throw 11 guys out there. They're gonna throw 11 guys out there. Again, respect our opponents, but also believe in what we can do. Have confidence in our ability. I think that's, he maybe pared it down a little bit, but that's a message I think we've preached over and over again this year.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
Let's go next to Craig Haley. Go ahead, Craig.
Thanks, Bill. Hi, Coach Vigen. You've reflected a lot on some of the things you see in North Dakota State that was there when you were there in Fargo. What's something you see in NDSU that's different from when you were there?
Well, that's a good question. I think what's occurred since I've been there, we were probably pretty similar, especially when you look at those last 3 years. But I think you look at what's occurred since I've been there, and there's been 2 head coaches, there's been numerous position coaches, offensive and defensive coordinators. That's changed. I think what they've been able to do offensively is, highlight their stars, and that's changed over the years. I think defensively, it looks a lot the same. But I know, Coach Braun, I think, has brought his own ideas, and much like Coach Jens did when we left. So they're doing things a little bit differently. And again, it's probably, as much as anything, highlight our playmakers. While it hasn't changed a lot, I think where those stars fit in each year, that's changed a little bit, and then they've done a great job to me of highlighting them. Offensively, I know in our 3 years, those last 3 championships, we didn't have anybody like Hunter Luepke. I know that, and so their willingness to play him all over and really stress him is smart. And at the same time, I know quarterback-wise, they haven't been in this situation like they are this year, but they've evolved, and they're utilizing both guys, and they're doing a really good job with that. But there isn't a Trey Lance, an Easton Stick, a Carson Wentz on this roster. So kudos to them for continuing to evolve, I think, and that the cornerstone stuff hasn't changed. I know that, but you have to be willing to adapt and adapt your personnel as much as possible, each and every season, each and every week, and they've done a good job of that. Yep.
Ashley Washburn, go ahead.
Thanks. Hey, Coach, just one quick question for me, kind of rewinding back to February when you got the job here at Montana State. Obviously, a lot of us talked about your championship experience at NDSU, and then in your introductory press conference, you talked about bringing a championship, and then throughout the season, you talked about playing a 15-game season, and here you are getting ready to play that 15-game season. So I guess if you kind of reflect back, it doesn't seem, and especially with the team, you guys have all bought in on making it to this national championship in your first year. And maybe you can just talk about how special this team is in doing that in your first year as a head coach.
Well, I think, first of all, to achieve something, you got to see it. And I didn't know if we would make it here, but I knew we could. And I wanted that message to be heard loud and clear. And that was based on where I thought this program was at and where I thought our talent was at. And you kind of set that long view up right from the start, but then don't talk about a whole lot. Talk about the week in, week out. What do we need to do even today to take a step towards where we want to go? And that, the building blocks, February through April, that was kind of the first phase, and that was this getting to kind of know each other, getting to the point where we could trust each other phase. Laying out summer and just pure hard work and taking another step forward from that perspective. And then I think as the season's gone along, understanding the process that we need to go through. So again, whether I thought we would necessarily, I knew we could. And to get here, and again, I talked about it right away today, for our guys to maybe have that taste in their mouth back in 19, and to have a determination to work as hard as they could, and then get 2020 kind of taken away. Not kind of, they did get it taken away, and then have the coaching change. But to continue that resolve, I think that's the cool thing about this is these guys, they wanted it. Now, how to get there and all that kind of stuff, we've done some things to help that out. But these guys wanting it, I think, is the groundwork for all this.
Let's go next to Colton Poole. Go ahead, Colton.
Hey, Brent, thanks for the time as always. I actually got a chance to talk to Brock Jensen a couple days ago, and he said Tommy reminds him of himself. I'm curious if you see any similarities between those two, just as players or as people.
Yeah, I think as competitors, as guys that are willing to do whatever, kind of play the position however it might need to be played. I think there's definitely some similarities. I look back, to Brock playing as a young quarterback, as a freshman and sophomore, where he was and what he was able to do for us. And I think understand that I don't need to do this all myself. I have a good line in front of me. I have good backs, good receivers, all that stuff, good tight ends. I mean, I think Brock understood that. I think Tommy does. And they're relatively unassuming, the both of them, but extremely competitive. And that's probably the thing, I would draw to the most, while being, athletic and can run it, can throw it, all that kind of stuff. But that competitive nature, I think, is very similar.
Yeah. I got to talk to Dan Davies today. He was a player, a coach, and now administrator and broadcaster for this MSU, getting to the championship here this year. I'm curious, just what is your relationship like with him? What does he bring to the athletic department?
Well, he's the guy that he knows where all the bodies are buried, for sure. I know that much. He's the guy that if you played in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, you're going to go and find Dan Davies, and he's going to be the guy that shoots me a text or calls me and say, hey, here's a player from this year. He'd love to come up and stop in the building. And so he's that conduit for all our players going back a long ways. And I know for me, from the time I got the job, he's been a real source of information, certainly, of positivity, of encouragement. I mean, all that kind of stuff. So, I know he's retired now, but I know he's still going to be around. He's certainly going to be on the sideline down on the Ace. So, Dan means a lot to this program over the long haul, and he certainly means a lot to me just in the short term here.
All right, thank you.
Let's go next to Alex Eshelman. Go ahead, Alex.
Coach, thank you for your time. A little off the topic of the X's and O's of football. MSU Alumni Foundation is raising money to help get the band to the championship. What does it mean to see the fans and the alumni and the band all kind of coming together to make sure that they can be there to support you guys?
Well, I hope that this is an opportunity that they don't take for granted. It's been a long, long time. So to get as many people down to Texas, the band, I think it's really important. This is an experience unlike anything that Montana State's been a part of. And going back to '84, I'm sure we're going to have some fans that were in the stands that day, but that was a different deal. It was a continuation. It was in December. It wasn't as big an event, I guess, that it has been now the last decade plus. So no, it's important that we get as many people down there. I appreciate the amazing support. I hope everybody can find a ticket. I know that's easier said than done, but it'd be great. We need to, obviously get the band down there. So raising that money is pretty dang important.
In the last press conference, one of the things you took from North Dakota State is you had spring camp, fall camp, and now winter camp. How has it been practicing in these colder conditions? Obviously, you know what it feels like, you're used to it, but how has that been?
Well, we got to do what we got to do. Whether the weather agrees with us or not. I know it didn't yesterday. It's a little better today. So, we can go in the heart of the day. We can go when it's going to be the warmest out, and we just got to get out there and get our work done. We have our guys, they're complete attention right now as far as their time goes. So a lot of time spent doing walkthroughs indoors, but we have to be out on a football field, moving around and doing the things we need to. So, I hope there's an indoor facility here in the future. There isn't one now, though, and we got to do the best we can.
Last quick question for me. How many people are you going to know at this championship between family, friends? I mean, being that you're from North Dakota, obviously your history there is extensive.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Hundreds, I don't know. I'm certain I won't see them all. It's about us getting to that game and doing the best we can. But yeah, it's obviously a pretty unique situation. With my ties there, former teammates, whatever, I guess. So there's going to be a lot of people down there that I know, and that know me, but it's about coaching this football team first and foremost. Yep.
Let's go next to Beth Hool. Go ahead, Beth.
Hi, Brent. Been a long time, 2010. You, Craig, Scotty, what you guys were building here. Could you ever imagine that it would have been as sustainable as it is? I know you've mentioned lots of little tiny pieces of change, but they aren't fixing what's not broken, and a lot of
Yeah, I think to say I would have envisioned this in 2010 to the extreme, not necessarily, but there was a machine building, and by that I mean, getting to the playoffs, having the success in 11 and then in the 12. I know there's a lot of pride in that program, whether it's in the Fargo-Moorhead area or across the state, that I guess the stakeholders weren't going to want to see that slow down, and it takes continued support. It takes avoiding complacency, and that needs to be a real collective effort. And it's apparent that that continued support's there. The indoor complex that's coming up will be amazing. I know the continued commitment from a scholarship perspective has been everything it needs to be, and there's been an avoidance of being complacent, and that a lot of credit goes to just all those people on the outside continuing to push it, but a lot of it just goes to those players, that continual synergy, I guess, within that locker room of one group of players leading the next group of players and showing them how it needs to be done, and not letting that part slip up is really the core to this continued success, while those outside forces feeding it.
kind of a cool, unique experience. You're going to be taking on NDSU, which has all of its own cool ties, but also Tyler Roll as that offensive coordinator for NDSU. He was a offensive assistant when you were there, and he also spent a lot of time with you. He played for you, and so how cool is that to see? There's so many relationships in football, especially in college football, but this one seems kind of extra cool when you highlight it.
Yeah, obviously very happy for Tyler. Had a chance to coach him, like you said, and he was an amazing player. He came and coached with us. I think that would have been, was that 11, 12 or something like that? I guess it's hard to keep track of. I think he was part of at least one of the championship teams, I know. And then he went and did his own thing for a little while, came back when we left, and has been able to go from being a position coach to now the coordinator spot, and he's done a tremendous job. And I always appreciate Tyler for who he is as a person and for who he is as a worker. So to see his level of success is not surprising. So yeah, neat to go against him. I know coach with Goose, Nick Gazer. I think for a bunch of years and have stayed relatively close to Nick. And then Grant Olson's another one that I was recruiting, even though I didn't coach him, he was on defense, but I recruited him, and then he came out and coached with us at Wyoming for a couple years. So some really deep, close relationships, and to see them across the way will be interesting.
And then final one for me, how much do you find yourself either intentionally or subconsciously referencing those experiences, just in how to do this? Like you said, build that machine. Obviously, you learned a lot more. You picked up a lot more in your time in Wyoming as well. In terms of building your program at Montana State, as well as in this preparation for Frisco, because I promise you, I've been to all of them. They have not changed much in the script down in Frisco.
Right. Well, I think in building it, I think it was certainly a blend of that experience at Wyoming, coupled with I guess as much as anything, to experience coaching at the FCS level and having the success we did at NDSU. So it's a definite blend of the last 10, 15 years of my career. I think relative to this experience down in Frisco, I think it's important that you don't go down there blind. I think you go down there blind, you don't know how to handle the 3 weeks, you don't know how to handle the couple days leading up, and you're just guessing at everything. I would imagine that would make the experience complicated. I suppose we did that in 2011, I guess, but having at least those 3 years to reference back, I think it's important. Now, we still have to go out and play the football game, but just how to spend your time, how to be efficient with your time, I think that's the biggest thing that I can fall back on.
We have time for 2 more. Let's go first to Jamal Kennedy. Go ahead, Jamal.
Yeah, Coach. Your quarterback, Tommy, is there any concern, I guess, with going up against this experienced NDSU defense for him since he's such a freshman, or did that SDSU game show you everything that you needed to see?
I think SDSU's got a really good defense. I imagine NDSU's not going to do everything exactly like SDSU did. So I think, I think NDSU does a good job of disguise and showing you one thing and having it become another. They got really good players. They really play hard. There's still a learning curve for Tommy. He's far from has everything figured out. But I do think these last 3 games, I think gives him a sense of confidence. And I think he's got so many more reps now than he had a few weeks back that at least being able to recognize and see his pre-snap keys and then what's happening post-snap, I think that's become more and more familiar and comfortable for him. So this is I guess a whole new bag of tricks that he'll be seeing and a different opponent, but he's made progress in each one of these weeks, and we need him to continue to do that against NDSU.
And how is Troy Andersen help stabilize your program and that defense over there?
Well, he fixes a lot of things with his ability to cover ground. I think he makes a lot of plays that the average man couldn't, and he can cover well, he blitzes well, but it's more just he's in the right place, but then he can do things faster than most, and he's such a good leader for us as well. So to have your best player be your best leader, I think that's obviously what you're shooting for, and we have that in Troy.
We'll finish up with Bison 1660. Go ahead.
Hey, Coach, congratulations on a great year here so far. NDSU is interesting in this game because they have 2 quarterbacks that have played a lot of snaps so far this season, Quincy Patterson and Cam Miller. What do both of them present, and how do you prepare for what you might see with 2 quarterbacks on the field?
Yeah, there's 3 things there. You got to prepare for each one of them individually, and they're different. They're quite a bit different, not only in stature, but just in what they probably, I guess, what they do with them. And you've seen a real, I guess, emergence with Cam Miller the last half of this season. I think he's continuing to play with more confidence, throwing the ball really well. He's got the ability to extend plays, so he's dangerous in that regard. Patterson, just his size and stature and his athleticism along with that is, he's a really hard to handle in the run game in particular, but more than capable in the passing game. And then you throw them both out there at the same time, and where that bag of tricks can continue to lead. I know they missed the throwback to Patterson in that last game, but you expect that there's going to be more to that. So you kind of take your normal situation where you ideally you prepare for one guy, and now I think you're preparing for 3 different things, 2 different guys, and then the situation where they can be on the field at the same time.
All right, thank you, everybody. We'll go ahead and let Coach get out to practice.
Thank you very much.